Music theory with Microsoft Excel, mode formula comparison, and mode relationship table. Get ready and some coffee because you ain't never seen rockin' unless you excel at rockin'. And that's what we're gonna do here with the Microsoft Excel software. Here we are in Excel. If you don't have access to this workbook, that's okay because we'll basically build this from a blank worksheet. But if you do have access, 4 tabs down below. Fretboard, example, practice, blank, the fretboard tab, having a simulated fretboard that we will refer back to. The example tab, having the finished product, in essence, the answer key. The practice tab, having pre-formatted cells so you can practice the practice problem with less Excel formatting. But if you don't have any of that, that's okay because we'll be working in the blank tab, basically building our worksheet from scratch, practicing both our Excel skills and our music skills. Noting, however, those are actually one and the same to a large degree because we want to be able to visualize these kinds of tables, possibly be able to reproduce them, if not with pen and paper, with Excel sheets. All right, let's go back on over to the example tab to get an idea of what we will be doing. We're going to reconstruct our baseline, which is going to be the 12 notes that we're going to be building from. We'll reconstruct our modes, the number of the modes. We'll put a Roman numeral system in. We'll also abbreviate the modes with a letter. We will then show the formula, and then we'll show the formula in number of half steps. Then we'll look at all of our modes, and we'll compare each of the modes in terms of the whole steps and half steps within the mode. So this is going to give us a comparison that makes it look like we have a different formula. We don't, remember, the formula is the same. It's just that we're starting at different points. However, it can be useful to line up the formulas in this way so you can see the difference in the steps as you go through the different modal scales from different points within the formula. So then we'll also be able to see all of these modes. We're playing the modes as a modal scale now. There's 7 notes in the modal scale, but we also are naming each of the points as a modal or node within the system. So don't get confused on the 2 kind of ways that we're using the modes. This is common to do. We're using it basically as the starting point of the diatonic scale if we play it in order, and we're also using it as a point within the system. So if I'm in the Dorian mode, I can actually list all of the other points in the system, not by relative position, not by note, but actually by absolute modal note, absolute modal number, or absolute mode. In other words, this is now showing in Dorian, for example, all of the modes, the Dorian, the Phrygian, using absolute mode numbers that tie out to the if you know the Nashville music system, I believe it ties out in that kind of idea. So that's what we want to be able to memorize. Now, this is a really powerful thing to be able to do because what you're doing here is you're mapping out everything on the fretboard by the thing that's going to be most maneuverable, the modal points. So I can define each of these modal scales, the 7 note modal scales that start on each of these points, by listing the modes, which will go in order from that point if we keep an absolute modal numbering system. So that means if I go back on over here to the fretboard, we're looking at our fretboard. It's in the key of C right now. So we have 7 notes mapped out all over the fretboard in the key of C. We want to be memorizing them not by note name per se, not by relative scale number, but by absolute mode number and absolute mode name. What that's going to help us to do then is to name all the points in this shape and possibly recreate the scale from that point within the formula by the relative absolute mode number. That's how we want to be able to recreate the shape. So when I build this, I want to build it off of the absolute mode number. This will also become important when we get to chords, because you'll note when we talk about chords, the traditional system names chords based on just the major scale and then the minor scale, but that means the chords are not very specific. I'd like to get even more specific. You can name it by mode, but you can get more specific than that and say, what are the notes in the C major scale, right? If we see the bar chord, you can see a bar chord here, or you can see the C kind of mapped out here, boom, boom, and then boom, there's the 1, 3, 5. So I can say there's a C, E, and a G in it. But I can also say, well, if there's also an Ionian to the Phrygian to the Mixolydian, that's more specific. Why is that more specific? Because then if I move this same shape up here, then I have this shape, boom, 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 right? These three notes, and in the normal system we would call that a G major. But what's more specific is to say, well, no, this is actually a G Mixolydian. What? Because that tells me the shape around it, right? That tells me it's actually a different place in the system. And I can name it not by the notes, but the relative position. It's the absolute mode 5, 7, 2. All of that is transferable and a lot more specific of a naming convention. It tells you exactly where you are on the fretboard within the diatonic shape that you want to be working in, as opposed to saying, I'm moving to a different shape, as though I'm moving this whole C major shape up to here. That's not what's happening. You're in the same shape, and you're happening to play in the same relative positions that are in a different part of the same shape. I'd like to name it differently, right? So again, that's going to be more specific. We'll talk more about that later, but we'll build the table for now. Let's go to the blank tab. Let's select the whole thing, triangle, right click on it. We're going to format our cells like we always do. I'm going to put the baseline formatting down, lay down the baseline. Currency, I'm going to get rid of the dollar signs, get rid of the decimals. I'm going to put negative numbers as red and bracketed. Closing that up, I'm going to make the whole thing bolded. You don't have to do that, but I think it's good for our presentation purposes. I'm going to do this quick because we've seen it before. I'm going to say our notes in terms of note number. Let's just say number, and then I'm going to put letter, and then let's just say letter. I'll make it as thin as I can, and then both. So I'm going to say there's 12 notes, so I can pull this up because I'm going to try to make it as thin as possible. Let's undo that. And let's see if I can pull this up to here. And then I'm going to go 1, 2, copy those, and just fill handle it down to 12. 12. And then I'm going to go to the letter. The letter is going to be A, and then AB, and then B, and then C, and then CD. That's representing the sharp and flat in a nice simple way. D, I won't go over that again because we've seen it before. E, F, and then F, G, and then G, and then G, A. Those are our 12 notes. If I combine them together, I'm going to put the letter first this time. This equals the letter, and then we use the and to tie it together. The number, letter and number. Fill handle that down, ba-boom. There it is. And then I'd like to repeat it twice so that I can see it kind of going around in a circle. So I'm going to say this equals the 1. Copy that across, copy that, roger that, and then we'll copy it down until it gets down to those 12 spaces. I'll go a little too far, and then I can just delete going back up. That's a little bit easier to do than going too short, just for your formatting purposes, just to make it fast here. Home tab, font group. We're going to make this black, white for the headers. I'm going to select these up top, make it as skinny as possible by clicking in between, boom, and then I'm going to make this first bit a different color. I'm going to make it blue and bordered blue. Home tab. If you don't have that blue, it's in the more colors. It's in the standard, and then that blue right there, bam, and then okay, and then dropping it down, I'm going to make it bordered, and then underneath, I'll make this a different color because this is the repeat. We'll make it border and green. Let's make it this green. Okay. So then I'm going to make a skinny D, make a skinny D, and then we're going to say, all right, now let's build our table. Okay, so within the table, we're going to have the mode. Let's put the mode name. Let's call it mode name. Mode name, and we have the Ionian, I'll just type them out, Dorian, Mixolydian, hopefully I spell them right. Mixolydian Aeolian Locrian. Now, if you don't like those Latin names, it's okay. Practice them, and you'll start to appreciate them. I'm starting to like the Latin. I'm gonna read the Iliad. I'm gonna read the Iliad in Latin because I now have developed an appreciation for the names. So I'm gonna say this is gonna be the mode number. Let's just say mode number, and I'm gonna say it's gonna be 1, 2. We'll select those two, and we'll copy it down. And we'll, oh, wait a sec. No, wait, no, I'm missing one. Ionian, Dorian, I'm missing the Phrygian. Let's pull this down. I'm gonna pull it down. You're missing one. I need Phrygian. Phrygian. All right, let's copy that down again. Make this black and white. Black, white, smaller. Let's center it while we're at it. And then Roman numeral. Let's do our Roman numerals. This is going to be equal to the Roman of the 1. So now we've got the Greek things and Latin stuff happening. We're mixing up Greco-Latin. Let's copy it down, and then I'll copy this down. And so now I want the small Roman numerals for the minor modes. We'll talk about them later, but that means you build a minor chord off it, or it's a minor mode because it has a minor third as opposed to a major third. So this one needs to be minor, so I'm going to double click and I'm going to embed in front of it lower. It needs to be lowercased. And then close it up. And then this one, same thing, double click. I'm going to put a lower in front of it. Lower to lowercase it. Close it up. And then this one's an uppercase because it's a major chord or a major mode. So it's the 1, 4, 5 or major. This one's minor because it's the Aeolian, which is the minor scale. So lower, tab, close it up. And then the last one is the diminished. So it's lower, and I'm going to add a dot. So lower, tab, close it up. And then I'm going to say and quotes because I'm going to put a little period. That's what I'm going to use to stand for diminished, because I'm not going to use the fancy symbol because I want it to be easy to do, so I don't have to pull in some fancy symbology in here. You know, we're trying to clean things up, all right? Trying to clean things up. I don't need well, you don't have that's not the fancy symbol. Whatever, we're doing it the way that we can type it without having to take all day with it. All right, so then I'm going to abbreviate it little I for Ionian, little D, little P, little Y for Lydian, because I don't want to have the L mixed up for a 1, X for Mixolydian, because I don't want the M mixed up with major and minor, A for Aeolian, but A, and then it's trying to do that. Don't do that. And then I'm going to say this one's going to be N, because I don't want the L to mess us up, and Locrian is backwards. So I'm going to say it's crazy and it's backwards. So that's why I picked the last letter, just so you can remember. That's my memorization story. Okay, so then I'll center this, and let's center this. Let's double click on that one. All right, what's our formula? The formula is in wholes and halves, whole, half, whole, half. If you put the formula in half steps, what's the formula? It's 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1. All right, so let's go ahead and make that black, white, center it, and then we'll make it as skinny as possible. Put it on Ozempic or whatever that is, you know, and then we'll put it. Well, you don't need Ozempic. That's not healthy. Don't be advertising. Okay, don't do the Ozempic. It's not healthy, I don't think. I don't know. I'm not advertising any drugs here or anything. We're gonna make this Ionian. We'll copy that across. We'll copy it across, and then we'll copy it down, and then down one more. It's better to go too far and then delete the last one. So we copied it down across 2 octaves again. So that kind of repeats, kind of like a circle. You can think of it as a linear progression going up. but it's also going around in a circle pitch-wise. So there it is. That'll help us for our formatting, for formatting's sake, once we do our table over here. Now, I'm not going to think about the table going backwards first, right? So meaning in our example, you'll note that directionally, we can go to the right and we go to the left. We could go behind it, right? But most of the time, people think of going one way. So let's think about going like forward first, and then we'll think about going backwards. All right, so let's just build our table that way. Let's make a skinny. I'm going to make a skinny D, home tab, clipboard, format paint to make the same size of a skinny. Put that on the K to make skinny K. All right, so then we're going to say this is going to be, this is going to be Ionian, and it's going to be a Roman numeral I. Let's say this will, let's do it this way. This is going to equal the Ionian, and it's going to be Roman numeral. Let's put the Roman numeral I here. I'm going to use these references in our later tables. That's why I want them here. And then we're going to say that we want this to be equal to the abbreviation of I. Okay, so let's do that. And then maybe this is going to have a header that's going to be this long. So I'm going to make this center black and white. Now I'd kind of like this header to line up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a cell so that the header is always 3 cells. So I'm going to select these cells, right click and insert, and shift them down so that I bring it down here. So now the headers kind of line up, and I'm going to go up top and make this one black, white, centered. Let's do that over here as well, just so all the headers are like 3 cells long. So I'm going to select 2 cells this time, right click, insert, and then shift down, boom. So now I've got these 2, I'll make them black, white, center. Okay, so now everything's kind of on the same level. All right, so then we're gonna say this is gonna be equal to the Dorian, and this is gonna be equal to the Phrygian, and this is gonna be equal to the Lydian, and this is gonna be equal to the Mixolydian, and this is gonna be equal to the Aeolian, and this is gonna be the Locrian. Okay. So then the Dorian is going to be Roman numero 2. Let's make this as tight as possible so I can see these. Let's select these and tighten them up. Double click, boom. And then we'll say this is going to be the Phrygian. So that's going to be a Roman numeral 3. This is going to be the Lydian, Roman numeral 4. Tab would be better, tab. Mixolydian is Roman numeral 5. Aeolian. Ao. I don't know why I have to say that every time. I just like saying Ao. Aeolian. And then we're going to say this is going to be then the letter. That I looks like a Roman numeral. I don't like that. But that's, we're going to say this is, so wait, this is going to be the letter D. And then this is going to be equal to the letter P. Lydian is going to be the letter Y. Mixolydian is going to be the letter X. Aeolian is going to be the letter A. Should be AO. AO is what it should be, but no. 1 letter. Everybody gets 1 letter. Just because Aeolian's not special, doesn't get 2 letters. Home tab, font group, let's make it black, white, and center. Okay. So then, what we're gonna do, I'm gonna add the formula. Now we could just see the formula going down this way. Let's just do this way first. So what's the formula? Let's just say it's gonna be equal to this 2, and then I'm gonna copy it down. So that's gonna be the normal formula for the major scale or Aeolian. Now, if I compare that to the Dorian, all that's happening on the Dorian is now I'm starting here. So I'm starting on this 2. So from a scale degree standpoint, I would make that the 1. But all that's measuring from, all we're doing is measuring from the second point in the system if you're thinking of it as like a circle. So if I line it side by side though, it could be useful to say, okay, well if I start as that and I want to build my shape, I'm going to copy it down here, and that's going to copy it down. That's why we made 2 rows, because it goes down to here. So it just repeats. So now we started here, went down to here, and it just basically repeats. So that means if you're on the Dorian, this structure, see how it makes it look like you have to memorize 2 different formulas? Like it's a whole, it's a 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1, and this one's a 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1, 2, right? But what you really want to say is, no, I'm starting on the second note. So it's the same formula. It's just it was, so what you do is you say, if it was the Ionian, it'd be 2, and then I'm starting on to get to the second note, and then it's 2 to get to here, right? So it instead of saying it's 2, 2, 1, I'm just going to keep it in my mind 2, and then I start on the second 2, right? Because I'm on Dorian 2. So it's 2, and then I start on the second 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1, and then it starts over 2, right? So that's how you want to put it in your mind. You don't want to put it in your mind as though they're completely distinct. Dorian's completely distinct. It has a totally different formula. No, you want to see in your mind one formula that's going around in a circle. That's the easiest way to visualize it. And then if you repeat it until you understand it in and out, you're just going to repeat the formula that you've already memorized, 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1, and say, well, I'm on the second node in the system, therefore it's 2, soft 2, and then it starts on Dorian 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1, 2, right? So and you can even start at the bottom. You could say, well, the soft 2 is at the bottom because it goes around the circle, right? 2, and then 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1, 2, right? That's the last 2. Okay, what if we start on the next one? So now we're just starting on the Phrygian, right? So now we're saying it's 2, 2, 1, right? And then we'll copy that down, and it'll copy down this way. So when I build on, and this is useful on the fretboard, because note that when you're on the fretboard, you might be building your off of the Phrygian. So if I want to build the shape using the formula off of the Phrygian, I'd have to start the formula from there. So I'd have to say, what is the formula? Well, I don't know it. Well, you do know it because you know the major scale formula, which is 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1. So you're just going to say 2, 2, and then it starts on the 1, right? 2, 2, and then it starts on the 1, and then you build it. Now, in a fretboard, you have to memorize what the distance is between the notes, right? So this happens to be another 2 because it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 2 notes away. So if you know that, you can build off of any note using the same formula as long as you know which node you are on, and you just repeat the formula from that point. Okay, so if I go back on over here, so same thing. You could do it this way now too. See how this works? You could say, okay, soft 2. If I want to build the formula off of the Phrygian, the third note in our scale, or the third note from an absolute modal standpoint, right? So we're going to say you could say soft 2, 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1, and then it starts over 2, 2, 1. Right? Or you can start at the bottom here. Here's your soft 2s before you start. The bottom is like the 2, 2, and then 1, 2, 2, 2, 1, and then 2, 2, right? So that's going to be your formula. So then if I go to the Lydian, we're going to say, okay, all we're doing is starting the same formula, but now it's starting on this one. So we're going to say it's on that 2. We'll bring it down. So once again, how do I build the formula off of the Lydian? Well, it's the same formula. The formula is soft 2, 2, 1, and then 2, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 1, right? Because it's starting there. Or the soft bit would be down here, 2, 2, 1, and then it starts at the top, 2, 2, 2, 1, and then 2, 2, 1. All right? And then Mixolydian is going to be equal to starting here, and then we copy that down. So once again, if we want to start from Mixolydian, how do I do that? I don't remember the formula. Well, it's 2, 2, 1. It's the fifth one. So if I go from 1 to 2 is 2, from 2 to 3 is 2, from 3 to 4 is 1, from 4 to 5 is 2, and then from 5 to 6 is 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1. I'm sorry. 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 1, 2. All right. So, okay. So then let's go to the aeolian. Aeolian, the minor. So the minor starts here. And then we just copy that down. So we'll copy that down. So now it starts way down at 6. So 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, and then 1. Then it starts over 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, and then here's it starts over 2, right? And then Locrian would be starting at the end, taking that half step back around the circle. So if we copy that down, so what does this look like? Well, it starts at the last one, so it'd be like the 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, and then 1 takes me from that last one back around the circle. Usually, if you think of the C or the Ionian as 1, 1, 2, 2, and then 1, and then 2, 2, 2. So, okay. So I think we have that, hopefully. So I'm kind of confusing myself here. So now I'm going to put these on this side. Notice you can also map it out this way. So we're going to say, let's make this, I'm going to combine these together. This is going to be I and Ionian. So I can see both the number and the letter, but I want a space between them. So I'm going to go in here again, and I'm going to say I and then brackets, and let's put a dash between them instead of a space. And then I need another and. So I'm tying this together to a dash, and then I'm tying it to that other note. So I, and then it's Ionian, or the Greek letter, Roman letter 1. So there we have it. So I'll make this black. So just note that you can see it this way too. So I could say, okay, Ionian is 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1. Dorian is 2, 1, 2, 2, 1. I'm sorry, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1, 2. Right? And what's happening here is this one is just starting on the second bit. So it started here. This pattern is the same as it starts going down this way. Okay, let's go to the next thing. We're running long on time here. So let's say that we want then I want to map it out by, let's double click here. And I'm going to say this is going to be equal to the Ionian. We'll just copy this down. Actually, let's do this. Let's bring this one over here. I'm going to bring it off by 1. I'm going to say the Ionian is going to be my middle one here. Ionian, and then I'll copy this down. And I'm going to copy that across. So it's going to be one shorter. I'll show you why later. And then we'll go font group. Let's make that black, white, and centered. Okay, so now what I'd like to do is use our absolute numbering system for the modes. So if I'm in the Ionian mode, this is equivalent to the Nashville numbering system, kind of, right? It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So those are going to represent, you could think of them as scale degrees, which I'm going to make our absolute modal numbering system. So in other words, the 1 stands for Ionian, 2 is the Dorian, 3 is the Phrygian. They stand up these same numbers over here. 4 is the Lydian, 5 Mixolydian, 6 is the Aeolian, and 7 Locrian. Let's select these top bit again, double click so they're spaced properly. All right, so then what about on the Dorian then? Now there's a couple ways we can do this. We could say the Dorian is going to be equivalent to the 2, and so that means it would be Dorian, and then count it down this way, or possibly I can count it across this way and put the scale here. So it would be Ionian, 2, 3, 4, 5, Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, and so on. So let's try that. How would I do it? It would be this plus 1, and I can copy that across. Boom. But there's a problem because we want it to be down here. It might go over 7. What if it goes higher than 7? Then I'm going to have an issue. So what I would like to do is double click here and say, let's do our if function. So I'm going to say if tab, and then we'll say if that plus that is less than 8, which means it could include 7, but less than 8, then, comma, I'm going to copy that. Then I just want you to do that plus that. But if not, comma, do that plus that, but then subtract 7, because it's going to be greater than 7. So subtract 7, and then boom, and I should get the same numbers. So I'm going to copy it across this way. And then what if I copy it down? So if I start on the Dorian, I should go into the 3. That looks good. And if I copy that across, we're going to say, all right, it did what we expect, right? So it went 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then back to 1 instead of going to 8. So I should be able to copy this whole thing down. So we'll go boom, boom, boom. And so there it is. So now you've got you can see it both ways. If it was on the Dorian, it starts on the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. The Phrygian starts on the 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2. And then you can see it this way. Ionian, if we imagine this is the Ionian going this way, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then Dorian 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on and so forth. All right, now so now let's use that and map out the names. This has given me the absolute number for the modes. This time I want to see it just in terms of symbol. So I'm going to pull in this Roman numeral number and then the abbreviation here together in our cells this time. So this will be a little bit trickier for our Excel purposes. So let's put this down here. We're going to say this is going to be equal to the Ionian. I'm going to copy that down to here, and then I'll copy it across this way. All right, let's make that black, white, and centered. All right, so now I want to say find that number and return to me. I want you to find that number here and then return to me the letter, which is going to be the symbol for the mode instead of writing out the entire mode. And I'm also going to say find me that number again and give me the related Roman numeral. All right, let me show you. This is going to be kind of a long formula, but hopefully it makes just logical sense. We're going to say this is going to be equal to the X lookup. And we're going to say look up this one up here. And then, so look up that, and then comma. Where do you want to find it? I want you to look it up in this array. Okay, and then comma. What do you want us to do once we find it? I want you to give me the relative position over here. So it should find that one and give me an I. Enter. There it is. Let's do it again. I'm going to go back in there and say we also want, let's do an and. Let's say and. We want to do X lookup. I want you to find that in here again, comma. You can see the formula up top, comma. What do you want us to do? Now I want you to find that there. No, wait a second, I messed up. Let me do it again. Let's do this again. I want you to find this number, okay, comma. I want you to find that in here, comma. You can see the formula up top. And then I want you to return to me the Roman numerals. And then we'll close that up. All right, so now it looks like I won, but they're too close together. So what I'd like to do is put a space or a dash between them. So let's go back into it and say, okay, that looks good, but I'm going to put a dash. So after this and, I'm going to put a quote that allows me to type in it. I'm just going to put a dash. Let's try a dash instead of a space. End quote. But I also need another and before this one, so it ties it together. There's my knot tying this one to the text that's in the quotes, tying it to this one with the ands. All right, so now you have a dash. It's an I dash 1. Okay, let's copy it down and see if, no, I can't copy it down yet. I'm going to double click on it. I need to make everything except these two absolute. So I'm going to go into this one, F4, $ before the letter and number, F4, $ before the letter and number, F4, 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 F4. So now we've absolutized them. Okay, now let's copy it down. So it goes down to one more. So, and then, okay, so does that look right? Something is wrong. Let me try it again. So I absolutized this one. That's wrong. Undo that. F4, F4, F4. So these two should not be absolutized. Okay. Now let's copy it down again. All right. So Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, Locrian. Let's see if I can copy it this way. Ba-boom. So now we have our table going this way as well. So now I can see all of the related points within the system, and I can derive whether it's a major or minor mode, which means I would build either a major or minor triad because it has a major or minor third, which we'll talk more about later. All right, but now I'd also like to note that you could go backwards. So we often don't like talk about this, but I could go, if I'm on the Ionian, I could go directionally forwards, or I can go directionally backwards. Let's add the component of direction, which you often don't see in traditional, formats of how you map this out. So I'm going to say insert. Let's make this a little bit larger, and then I'll insert more. So I'm going to say, let's go over to here, right click and insert. They're all skinny. Dang it. I wanted to make it not skinny. All right. Make them unskinny. So now if I go back the other way, what am I gonna end up with? I'm gonna end up with a -1. I'm gonna call it. Now notice that 1/2 step back, and that will basically mean that if I'm on Ionian, I'll be going to Locrian, right? Because I'll be going backwards. So I could copy it this way. I could say this is going to be negative of this one. So now I'm stepping back 1, and I can copy that over. Let's do it. And that's going to result in, let's do it this way. This will equal the Locrian, and I'll copy that down. And then that will go back to the Ionian. Back to the Ionian. That's the Dorian. One more, boom. Okay, and I'm going to select all of this, black, white, center. I'll select all of this, double click to make it wide enough. And so there we have it. So now we could go backwards and go ju. So if I went behind it, if I took a step back, then I'd be going to within the modes, structure will be Locrian, Aeolian, Mixolydian. So if I copy that down, I think I could just copy this down. Hopefully I have this. We're going to say, let's copy that down. All right. So then that's going to be our backwards steps. One more down here. Okay, we're running long on time, so I don't want to spend a lot of time explaining that right now. I'll do that more possibly on the OneNote side of things. So let's go down here now and say, all right, we can do a similar process here where we can say that if I take this one back, then there's a couple ways I can do it. But let's say, because I could say, well, let's say it this way. I'm just going to say it's going to bring me to the Locrian. So if I'm on Ionian and I go backwards 1, it's going to take me to the Locrian. If I take a half step backwards around in a circle, it's going to take me to the Locrian. So I can copy that then back this way. Let's do this again. Let's say this is going to be equal. Let's do it this way. We'll copy it to this one, and then I'll copy it down this way, and then we'll copy it across, and that's going to take me to the Lydian, and then to the Dorian, and that's as far as we need to go because then it repeats at the Ionian. So let's stop it there. I'm going to select these, boom, black, white, and center, and then I can copy this across this way, and then I can copy it down this way. So that gives us our, if we step backwards, gives us the nodal relationships backwards. Let's convert those using the same formula to this format. So now I'm going to say this equals this again. We'll copy that down to do it. Copy that across, and one more. And wait, no, not one more. That's fine. And then we'll select this. We're going to make that black, white centered. And then I should just be able to copy this formatting all the way across. So I think that's right. Let me check my worksheet. I think that's right. I'm going to copy this down now. So now we have directionality. So when I'm on the fretboard, obviously, I could take a step forward going this way, and the next step would be going from the Ionian to Dorian, or I can take a step backward, which would be a half step backwards, and that would take me around the circle. If I was on Ionian, it would take me to the Locrian. Okay, so let's go back on over here, and let's just format this thing a bit. I'm going to hold Control down and scroll down a bit. Let's make this black and white here. Let's make this blue and bordered. I'll select this, make that blue and bordered. And I'll make this blue and bordered, border blue. And let's do that here as well. Let's make this border blue. Let's make this whole thing border blue, border blue. Do I want to make that center bit black maybe? Because Ionian's kind of like our starting point. So maybe this should be black. So you can see the middle bit right there. And then we're going from the Ionian kind of as the middle, going up to the Locrian, and then it repeats, and then back to the Dorian, and then it repeats kind of around in a circle. All right, so we might analyze it more in the OneNote side of things, which you might have already taken a look at, but I think that is the construction of it. I think, does that look good? I think that looks good. Maybe this should be black and white. Let's make this as the center point, black and white. All right, and then MOUI B to the N. All right, let's keep it at that. If there's any touch-ups, we'll do it at a later time. I'll get back to it.